technical difficulties seems very appropriate for
Absolutely.
this our Storytime 55, which is a general theme of trying to make a sci-fi movie and not doing the best job. So other topics that we've got fall under some general headings, first of which is kind of mysterious and sci-fi stuff. So we had UFOs, we had sinkholes, dark holes, and Alice-style rabbit holes, computer nerd stuff and clever special effects. When you travel somewhere and are totally convinced that A, you've been there before, B, it's been a film set or location for something, or C, it's the time and place you're supposed to be when those things are completely untrue. Coming up with tenuous connections to explain your conviction of the previous, such as the waiter's wearing the same jumper the actor does, or something like that. Then we have some that come under traveling, misdirections from Google, and flights and misconnections. Some other nerdy things, including board games and tectonic plates, and some just silly things, including the duck, chocolate sharing games and etiquette, and off camera. My off camera thing is Lloyd is not here. He's on his way back from a work trip this evening. However, there might be some parcels coming this morning. So I may suddenly leap up and have to go downstairs, and you can all think of me as I answer the door looking like this. That's what will be happening on camera here. So, other problem for today is for the only moderately serious part of today's story time, to do with that kind of thinking you've been somewhere before, deja vu sort of things, and it's called fishers. Have you ever stood by a certain stone and felt that you have passed this place some other time, long gone or maybe still to come? Crossed a path and shivered certain somewhere that some thread has split and another you turned off here for a future far from this one? Did you ever wake with wisdom that walked out of spaces seen behind your eyelids, sure a day has passed that is still here to see? Or lose time dropped through the cracks between the things you know, like coins and buttons lay beneath the floorboards where your life has been? Where do they go to, the lost seconds, the missed connections? And where do they come from, the snippets and sensations that seem to be mismatched to this reality? I wonder if they find their way like lost socks down drawbacks, through waves we don't yet know can be ridden, to other futures, pasts and presents, where we think we've been. Today's story is called Off Camera. The dice hit the table and rattled across the wood grain with a percussive tap, tap, tap. Wilma leaned over to read the result, composing her face into an expression she hoped looked as though she was getting the hang of this. 4, she reported, eyeing the patchwork of oddly shaped pieces and lines on the board. After a moment, she gave up and looked at Arjun. What does that do again? Arjun ran his finger along the lines. Find plate boundary 4, and then you have to decide what that tectonic plate boundary is going to do. Is it convergent, divergent, or transform? Wilma gave him a look. I don't know, Arjun. We were literally just talking before we started the game about how I don't know these things. Arjun leaned back in his chair with an air of exasperation. You don't have to know, you just pick one. Oh, okay, Wilma shrugged. Convergent. Arjun turned over some cards. Okay, you caused a volcanic eruption. Is that what you were hoping for? No, I wanted to make this bit of land break off and go that way, like you said it actually did. Arjun sighed. You picked the wrong one then. You should have said divergent. Wilma folded her arms. Arjun, if it makes a difference which one I pick, I do need to know what they all are. Arjun rearranged the board back to its previous state, looking annoyed. I already explained it to you. Yes, along with the entire history of what actually happened on the Earth, so my brain went all fuzzy, and I don't remember the bit I need for the game, Wilma snapped. Shall I tell you again? Yes, actually, no. First, we need to get dinner, and you need to write down dot points that are only about the difference between those 3 ways the plates join or move or whatever. Wilma got up. Can I at least re-roll the layout of the supercontinent first? Arjun grumbled. Wilma shrugged. Fine, as long as it doesn't change your explanation. Meanwhile, at Jen's house, Alice was at the dining table with Cassie, having a staring contest over the top of a box of rapidly melting chocolates. I don't know why I bought a mixed box, Jen exclaimed, shaking her head at them. It only ever causes trouble. Those are all going to be mush by the time you two decide who gets to pick first. She put on the kettle and got down an extra cup for Alice. Anyway, I thought you were going to tell us about your film course, Alice, not spend the afternoon making your eyes water. Then they heard the sound of car tires on gravel. A door thudded shut, and someone did one of those fancy rhythmic knocks on the door. Hello, anyone about? Cassie turned to look at Jen and lost the staring contest with Alice. Ha! Alice exclaimed, launching herself at the chocolates. Cassie seemed to have forgotten about chocolate. Is that Diver? She asked Jen, eyes wide. Didn't know he was in the country. Jen spread her hands, pulling an exaggerated no idea face, and went to get the door, returning a few moments later with a wet-haired Diver in tow. Alice looked up from the chocolate box, which she'd been contemplating most carefully. Hey, Arnav, did you get out of the water and immediately teleport into dry clothes and onto Jen's doorstep? Diver waved a hand at Alice. Alice, you can call me Diver, it's fine. He plonked down at one end of the table and grabbed a chocolate from the box, stretching out long legs and crossing them at the ankles. I've been testing out this new underwater camera I got at my cousin's pool. I'm on holidays. It's the best. Alice didn't seem to hear him. She was glaring at the empty space from which he'd removed a chocolate. Hey, that was mine. I won a staring contest with Cassie for it, she complained, frowning in disgruntlement at the alternatives. Did you hear what Diver said about the cool camera, though? Cassie asked her, looking eager to prevent a chocolate war. Maybe you could have an underwater scene in your end-of-semester project. Alice is doing a film course, Jen explained, for Diver's benefit. She's meant to be filling us in on how it's going, but so far these chocolates have been such a distraction that we haven't heard anything. Diver smiled. Oh, are you looking for a camera person? I love filming. I'd be happy to study it more if my current work wasn't sort of impossible. And he made a face of disgust. Ugh, what is that flavour? He grabbed a paper towel from the kitchen counter and spat his chocolate out into it. It was green, so I thought it was peppermint, but it's something. Alice glared. It's pistachio, and it was mine. Diver reached over to the chocolate box, pulled out the upper plastic tray, and revealed the second layer underneath. Ta-da! There's another one of those horrid green ones right there. There was a sharp intake of breath from both Alice and Cassie. You can't just do that. Rude. It's not fair. No one will eat the gross ones now. Diver held his hands up. Okay. Wow, I didn't realize there was special chocolate etiquette at play. Cassie put the top layer firmly back in the box. Someone has to eat these too. She pointed at the remaining foil packages. And Diver has to take one of them. Diver looked amused and leaned forward to eye the chocolates on offer. Well, that one's orange. Is it orange? I don't like orange. Alice raised her eyebrows. So I have to have that one. Yeah. Diver unwrapped the chocolate, popped it into his mouth and chewed, frowning. Is it orange then? Cassie asked. No. Alice frowned. What is it? Diver screwed his nose up. I don't know. Jen plonked 4 cups of tea onto the table. Come on, all of you. Can we hear about Alice's film course now, please? Alice blew out a long breath. Well, it's awesome. I love it. But I'm really worried about making my own film for the end of semester. We don't really get any budget to speak of. So, of course, Albie tried to convince me to do some philosophical one guy in a room thinking kind of thing. But I don't want to do that. I think I want to do something like post-apocalyptic sci-fi in the desert. Cool, Diver considered. I suppose you don't really need my new underwater camera, though. Alice blew on her tea. I might. I'm thinking there's a water source underground somewhere that everyone's looking for. She shrugged. But it's not much use having a camera person if I don't have any actors or a location or a script. She sighed again and sipped some tea. My sister Wilma studied drama, Cassie told her. I think she'd be very excited to be asked to actually be in something. Alice perked up a little. Really? Then she wilted. Oh, but trying to do sci-fi is silly, isn't it? I'd need someone who can actually imagine futuristic science stuff to help me. And like someone who knows how to do clever stuff on the computer to make things look real. Cassie smirked. I actually think Wilma might know just the person for that job, she remarked. 1 week later, Alice found herself in Wilma's flat, being interrogated by Arjun on a variety of film details, most of which she was yet to confirm. Meanwhile, Diver was taking headshots of Wilma, wearing an elaborate headdress made of junk and quite a bit of muddy-looking face paint. What this outfit had to do with the screenplay was unclear, owing to the fact that Alice had not yet written anything. So you want this to be set in a dystopian Earth landscape where water is scarce and other species are invading in search of an underground spring, Arjun was saying. Yeah, something like that, Alice replied cautiously. Why are the aliens coming to Earth if Earth is a wasteland? Arjun probed. Are you trying to suggest a destructive event that affected planets beyond our solar system too? Alice shrugged. I guess so. Is that possible? Arjun frowned. Unlikely. Perhaps if it was unnatural, humans taking all the resources from other planets or accidentally spreading a disease or toxin. Wilma took this as a cue to begin dancing, pulling strange faces and singing Radioactive. Alice sighed. Okay, well, if I could make this believable, we still need a deserty looking place to film. Just go to the red dirt road up the hill from Jen's house and run out the way if a car comes, Diver suggested. I don't want to get run over, Diver, Wilma objected. You could use a green screen, Arjun supplied more helpfully. It's really hard to get access to the green screen, Alice told them with a grimace, and expensive. Diver flashed them a grin. What if we had a group holiday? Northern Territory adventure, anyone? Arjun did some very fast typing on the laptop. Darwin is 39 hours away by car. Alice screwed up her face. Well, I guess we could fly if we get the cheapest flights there are. When everyone turned up at the airport, Alice breathed a sigh of relief and simultaneously began to worry about a number of things that could go wrong. Did anyone pack a first aid kit? She asked. Has anyone brought sunblock? Do any of you have special dietary requirements? Arjun was giving her a very unimpressed look. You should have thought about all those things already, he declared. Don't worry, Diver laughed. I'm sure there are shops in Darwin where we can get anything we've forgotten. Trust me, I'm used to travelling around. Yeah, well, we're going to Sydney first, Wilma pointed out crossly. We could probably get all that at Sydney Airport. Budget flights, Alice had discovered, tended to go via various places that weren't all that far in the right direction. On the plane, Arjun pulled out his laptop. So I was thinking, what if the aliens had this plan to influence plate tectonics on Earth from space, and that causes earthquakes and cave-ins when the characters are underground looking for the spring? He pulled up a complicated-looking globe covered in lines and different colours on his laptop, earning him a wary glance from a passing air host. Alice looked thoughtful. Doesn't the movement of tectonic plates take a really, really, really long time? Yeah, in reality, Arjun nodded. But we could suggest that the aliens have technology to generate planet-sized force fields. Wilma folded her arms. If they can do that, why don't they have technology to just make water and change the soil and everything? Arjun pointed emphatically at the laptop and elbowed Wilma in the ribs in the process. That would be the point. They'd be trying to use the Earth to get life started again, like terraforming. But they either don't realise or don't care that there are people still living on the surface. Depends if you want them to be evil or not. He clicked some buttons on the Earth on screen, started shifting about with animated clouds and magma flows. Suddenly, Wilma was pointing out the window. What's that? Everyone tried to see and succeeded only in squashing one another, knocking open tray tables and dropping things down the side of their seats. What does it look like? Diver asked, leaning across the aisle. I don't know, like a blob of light sticking out of a cloud. It's a UFO, Arjun told them in a practical voice. Wilma turned around, almost bashing heads at him. What? Arjun shook his head at her. What does UFO stand for, Wilma? Oh, right, smartass. Speaking of UFOs, Arjun, is there a way you could make it look like there's a mysterious lit up shape in the sky for me? Alice interjected. Arjun shrugged. It would be easier to computer generate one later. You technically can do a lot of things with colours and lights and projections, but I assume we're avoiding needing any extra gear. He gave her a look that indicated it would be much more fun to have the extra gear, and she was a total party pooper for having a low budget. The crackle of the pilot's microphone prevented any further discussion. Good evening, passengers, this is your pilot speaking. Just letting you know that we have a small delay coming into Sydney, owing to another aircraft landing a little late in front of us. The local time on the ground is 1800 hours, and we'll be touching down in around 15 minutes' time. I hope you've enjoyed your flight with us today. The pilot's voice was interrupted at this juncture by the sound of Alice swearing. What? Asked Diver, over the crackle of the announcement ending. We missed the bloody connection, Alice spat, pulling items vigorously out of the seat pocket in front of her and jamming them into her carry-on bag. Who knows when the next flight to Darwin leaves? Plenty of time to go shopping for those things we forgot then, Diver remarked optimistically. At Sydney Airport, Wilma fell asleep playing a phone game in the lounge, while Diver bought sunblock, bandages, and a variety of sweets they probably didn't need. Alice dashed about from check-in desk to baggage clerk and back again, trying to find out whether their checked bags had gone ahead of them or needed to be collected. Arjun worked on drawing and animating a UFO in a CAD program on his laptop. When Diver came back from his shopping expedition, he dropped all of his purchases onto a cushioned seating island and stood staring in front of a white sculpture of a whale that sat in the middle of the wide carpeted floor. This is the sculpture from that show, he proclaimed. This is where what's-his-face stood with that kid and they started juggling things. Alice returned from the ticket desk at that moment with the new boarding passes. "What are you on about, Diver?" she groaned. "This sculpture, it was on TV," Diver insisted. "This must be where they filmed What's It Called?" Arjun shot him a skeptical glare. "I'm pretty sure filming in airports is something they avoid." Diver started posing in front of the whale, tossing various of his possessions into the air in an attempt to look like he was juggling. "Come on, take a photo." "I'm looking up the truth," Arjun told him, typing something into his phone. "No, you're definitely wrong. Nothing fictional has been filmed here in years." Diver pouted. "Maybe it's just not that well known." He looked at the whale. "I mean, my picture is sort of relevant anyway. It's definitely a white sea creature sculpture in the show, right?" Wilma woke up a bit and blinked at him a few times. "I don't know what show you're talking about." "Right, that's enough. We have to go to our gate." Alice started picking up bags. "Diver, why have you bought all this food?" Diver looked hurt and gathered up his things. "There might not be any snacks at the motel." "These snacks are going to cause us more chocolate dramas," Alice told him, leading the way toward boarding gate 12. The next morning brought frustrating breakfast, cooked on a park barbecue, which took 2 hours because they kept running out of coins and having to search everyone's bags. Wilma kept dropping her toast, which inevitably then got stolen by a single duck who was onto something, having made a rough nest next to the barbecue shelter. Diver was watching the duck closely, as though fascinated by the bird, as he very slowly ate some baked beans and hash browns. "I think I know this duck," he announced eventually, his eyes still locked on the duck's optimistic face. Alice looked at him, her camp cup of ground-filled coffee halfway to her mouth. "How can you know a duck that lives in the Northern Territory? Being sick?" Diver frowned. "No, it just seems familiar, like it's important or something." Wilma blinked at him over her toast. "Well, have you ever had anything important happen in your life when a duck was around?" "No." Diver gave the duck a bean. "Maybe you're a time traveler and you know the duck from the future," Alice suggested sarcastically. Arjun looked between them with an expression that said he didn't know where to begin. In the hire car, Alice hooked her phone up to the screen and opened Google Maps. "So, I think if we park at this playground," she indicated where she'd placed a dropper on the map, "we should be able to walk out this way, and it will all just be red dirt and rocks and salt bush." Diver peered at the map and nodded. Alice pulled out of the car park, and soon they were travelling through open, dry outback, with very few markings to differentiate 1 kilometre from the next. "In 25 kilometres, turn right," Google Maps said cheerfully. "Yeah, maybe remind me a bit closer to the turn, thanks," Alice retorted. "It occurs to me," Wilma murmured, "that we could just pull over anywhere here and it would look like desert, just saying." Alice glowered. She didn't like her plans being questioned by Wilma, who had spent most of the journey either on her phone or being dramatic in a way that questioned whether she'd actually be any good at real acting. "The spot I've picked out has some caves that we might be able to use for the underground scenes," Alice explained. "And since it's a playground, there's a toilet block and some seats and things that we can actually use to get in and out of costume and take breaks and stuff." At this juncture, Alice's phone made a concerning blink blonk noise.
Oh.
Alice ignored it. "Doesn't that mean it's lost the GPS signal?" Arjun asked, concerned. "Should I plug mine in?" "It'll be fine," Alice scoffed. "It'll reconnect in a minute."
Oh.
"That could be the turn coming up, though," Diver pointed out warily. "Turn right," announced Google abruptly. Alice hurriedly braked and took the turn, pretending to be unfazed. 20 minutes down the road, Alice's phone said, "Proceed to the route." Alice glanced at Arjun. You know. I think it's just accidentally restarted the journey or something. "Proceed to the route," Google repeated. "I thought we were almost there," Diver worried. "Proceed to the route." "Okay, turn the damn thing off," snapped Alice. "I can see some buildings and a car park in the distance up there. That's probably it." She pulled into the narrow side street that led to the car park. There was a small patch of grass, a bench, and a single toilet cubicle abutting a transportable building in which a bored-looking man presided over some sausage rolls and pies. "I don't think this is where you meant to come," Arjun muttered. "It doesn't look like the pictures." "Yes, it is," Alice answered stubbornly. "The picture's probably just old." She parked and got out of the car, and Wilma went to get into costume while Diver unpacked his camera gear. "We'll go this way," Alice decided, pointing out to one side into the desert. "There's a rocky embankment over there, which might be where the caves are." Diver looked around him, frowning at the man in the sausage roll shop and the single swing set that was the sum of the playground equipment. Alice was pretty sure the Google photos had shown rather more playground than that, but she told herself that perhaps it was being upgraded. Things often change from the state they were shown in on Google, right? "I've been here before," said Diver, still looking all around him. "Oh," replied Alice, "that's good. You know where the caves are then?" Diver shook his head, then frowned again. "Maybe. I think they're over that way, like you said." Wilma emerged from the toilet cubicle with dusty, torn jeans on and her hair all tousled up and smelling of hairspray, and they all set off across the dry earth. "Here should do for the trudging through the desert scenes," Alice announced, a short distance out. "If anyone sees a car going past over there," she pointed at a far distant road, "tell me so we can try the shot again." Diver set all the camera gear down, and Alice pulled out a very scruffy storyboard drawn in biro on the back of some of her course notes. "Okay, Wilma, first of all, we just want to see you doing some general survival type stuff. Maybe trying to light a fire, exhausted looking walking, looking for shade, digging to look for moisture, that kind of thing. Diver will get a bunch of different angles and some close-ups. You ready?" Wilma nodded and knelt down to rub dirt over the old holy pair of boots she'd put on. "Okay, starting over on the right, just do some walking first," Alice instructed. Wilma got up and went where Alice was indicating. "Hold on," Diver stared forward. "You need to make sure all these bags and drink bottles are off camera." He started pulling everyone's stuff backwards to a large rock behind where he'd placed a tripod. "Obviously," Alice replied, trying to look like she'd definitely been about to deal with this before Diver took over. "Okay, are we set now? Action." Wilma started walking, dragging her feet a bit and looking around. She didn't have to fake sweating. It really was hot out here. Arjun sat down on the rock by the bags and carried on working on his UFO animation. Alice watched Wilma wander about. She was better than Alice had expected. But then again, maybe she was looking lost because Alice had only given vague instructions, and hot because the sun really was intense. "All right, I think it's enough distance walking shots, don't you, Diver?" Alice turned around to discover Diver was sitting on the ground behind the camera, drawing in the dirt with a stick. "Diver," Alice exploded, "what are you doing? Have you actually been watching the shots to see if they're okay?" "Just trying to remember where the caves are," murmured Diver. "I've been here before." "Well, can you actually watch what you're filming for the close-ups, please?" Alice shook her head in disbelief. Sometime later, Diver was filming Wilma digging a hole. Wilma knelt on the sand. "No, Wilma, you're off camera if you kneel up," Diver reported. Well, move back then, Wilma complained. No, it's supposed to be a close-up. Just sit down more, Diver retorted. No, now you're only half in shot. Move to your right. Oops, no, wrong way, my right. That's better. Wilma started digging, or at least tried to. The ground here is too hard, she announced. Arjun wandered into the shot with a garden trowel. Use this to get started, then pretend you used a stick, he suggested. Presently, divers had decided they had enough close-ups. Shall I get the same shots from a middle distance, he proposed, and Alice nodded. Diver moved himself back a bit and nearly tripped over on Arjun, who was settled on the ground behind him with the laptop again. There was a bit of swearing, and then Arjun relocated himself. Diver hit record again. Okay, action. Wilma started digging. Cut, yelled Alice. What now? Spat Wilma, throwing down her digging stick. There's a bloody duck behind you, Alice sighed. Who's going to believe there's no water if there's a friggin' duck? Diver stood up from where he'd been crouching behind the camera. Oh, hey, it's my duck again. It's not your duck, it's just a duck, Arjun told him firmly. It looks like my duck, Diver insisted. Look, it's got the same sort of... He trailed off, gesturing at his nose. Bill? Wilma suggested, rolling her eyes. Diver, all ducks have faces like that, if you hadn't noticed. Alice stamped up and down near Wilma, clapping her hands. Off camera, there's a good duck. Come on, out of shot, please. The duck began to follow Alice up and down, quacking and looking hopefully at her pockets. I think this might be more help, Arjun told Alice quietly, approaching with an oaty breakfast bar in his hand. Here, duck. He began sprinkling crumbs from it on the ground. The duck waddled back towards the camera, scooping up oats and peering at Diver, as though to check if he had some too. Diver laughed and filmed the duck as it approached. Perhaps it's time for a break, Alice admitted. They all trudged back to the tiny park with its single toilet cubicle, and Alice bought a sausage roll from the bored-looking man so that they could get away with standing under the minimal shade the edge of his shop provided. I'm kind of wondering if we are in the wrong spot, she admitted, eyeing the grey-looking meat in her pastry. There might not be caves out there to film the next bit. No, I think there are, Diver insisted. I'm sure I've been here before and gone in one. The bored sausage roll man glanced at them in a way that Alice suspected meant he knew something, but wasn't going to say anything. Once everyone had had some food and taken in turns to use the loo, the four of them made their way back out across the arid land in search of caves. The closest thing to be found was a pile of rocks with small dark gaps in between. Anyone got a little bottle labelled "Drink Me," Wilma joked. I'm pretty sure any rabbits and lizards are going to be climbing in those dark holes. Wait. Arjun was looking at the road behind them. That's a bridge. There must be some kind of tunnel or space underneath. Maybe that would be enough like underground? Alice shrugged. Worth a shot. I think maybe I'm wrong about having been here before, Diver admitted with an embarrassed smirk. Duh, replied Wilma. Luckily, however, Arjun was right. Under the road was a wide, very dark concrete tunnel. It smelt like cold earth and millipedes. I don't like it, Arjun announced, going back outside. Okay, let's get Wilma creeping along in here looking scared, Alice told Diver. Diver began messing with the camera settings. I can't see where I'm stepping, Wilma whined, picking her way gingerly along the wall. Am I even in shot? Diver squinted at his screen. I think so. They filmed what they hoped was a usable amount of Wilma exploring underground, and then headed for the sun. Back at the motel, Diver and Alice sat on the floor reviewing the footage, while Wilma ordered takeaway and Arjun pondered some of Alice's less than believable plot points. Oh no, Alice groaned, putting her head in her hands. I think that damn duck is in all the walking shots and we just didn't notice it until the digging. Sinkhole, yelled Arjun suddenly. Everyone turned to him in alarm and he shook his head. Not here. There aren't any sinkholes in Australia. I just had the idea that a sinkhole opening could alert the aliens to the presence of water underground on Earth. Alice shrugged. Okay, why? It makes more sense. If it's something that they can spot when looking for life, rather than like a rumour, Arjun clarified. They could see it while flying over in a small shuttle or something. Sinkholes can be quite big. Diver nodded. That seems like an excellent idea, Arjun. Assuming that we're actually able to make this film with the footage we have. He remarked, I've just seen your very clean shoe in that shot where we got you to cast a shadow from off camera.
Okay.
I told you the angle of the sun wasn't going to work, Arjun grumbled. How are we going to film the aliens bits anyway? Wilma inquired. Alice racked her brains for a sensible answer. Get inside a car and cover the interior with foil, Diver suggested. Then, I don't know, like put a screen outside the window with stock footage of what they're meant to be seeing.
Go.
You could cover the outside of the windows with green paper and green screen what's outside, Arjun cut in. But Diver's right. If the desert bits aren't convincing, there won't be much point. Alice grimaced. Gee, thanks, Arjun. Want to play a game? Arjun asked, abruptly, getting up and going to his bag. It's better with 4 people. Wilma moaned and went to look at drinks in the bar fridge. Oh, Arjun, they won't find it any easier than I do. Tell you what, said Alice. I'll play your tectonic plate game as much as you want if you can figure out a way to turn this mess into a film I can hand up. She closed the laptop. I've just discovered that not only was the emergency toilet paper roll out of the backpack and in the shot where Wilma's attempting to make fire, but Diver in fact pressed record while I was shooing the duck off camera and pressed stop when we intended to start rolling again. Wilma snorted with laughter. It's not funny, Alice hissed. If I can't make something out of this, I don't have a final project. Arjun and Diver had been conversing quietly by Arjun's bag during this outburst, discussing what Alice assumed was Arjun's board game. They turned as one to face her, grinning. I said it isn't funny. Alice stormed her way to the window and back, a journey of a few steps which did not satisfy her need to pace around. Arjun sat back down on the floor. There is one way to work with what we have. Alice looked at him, eyes narrowed. Go on. You make a comedy, Diver supplied, joining Arjun on the floor, about a film student trying to make a sci-fi movie. So basically a documentary, Wilma cackled. You could call it Never Work with Ducks, Dark Holes or Divers, Arjun remarked. You could have other stuff going wrong too, Wilma pointed out. You're good at worrying, so I'm sure you can think of loads of possibilities. Alice glared at her, infuriated at the nerve of these people who were supposed to be helping. But then an image started to form in her head, a moving image, of scenes of them all getting lost in the car, of costume malfunctions, missed flights, and improvised tinfoil props. She remembered how the bloopers were always her favourite bit in the films she'd watched as a kid, and how sci-fi really wasn't something she understood. She just liked the special effects and the occasional kinship between people from different planets. Alice picked up her phone and switched it to selfie mode. She spread her dodgy storyboards around her on the carpet. She set the camera to video mode and hit record. Hi there, Rocket Heads. I'm Beatrice, and you're behind the scenes on the filming of my next blockbuster hit, Continental Drifters. I'd like to introduce my awesome crew, Dan the cameraman. She turned to look for Diver. Dan, are you feeding a duck in the motel room? I swear, I'd do something else for 1 second. This guy's breaking the rules. Alice turned the camera off quickly because, in reality, Diver really was feeding his duck in the motel room. And that was the sort of thing there probably shouldn't be evidence of. Some weeks later, in Jen's kitchen, Arjun and Wilma sat with Jen and Cassie, the Fault Lines board game arrayed on the table between them. No, Wilma told Jen, waving her hand above the tile that Jen had her hand on. If you want to create a volcanic eruption, you should make a convergent boundary so that one of the plates subducts, then melts. Arjun glanced at her with a slight smile, then looked back at the board. A car door slammed outside and feet crunched on the gravel. The group around the table all leapt up and rushed to the door. Alice, today with Albie in tow, went to let herself in and almost crashed into Cassie. Whoa, why are you all right here? Have the projects been marked? Demanded Arjun unceremoniously. There was an awkward pause. Yeah, replied Alice eventually. Maybe we could see if we can call Diver. Wilma beamed. They liked it? Alice smiled and looked at her toes. They called it edgy. I guess good thing. Get a distinction. Arjun grinned while Wilma, Cassie and Jen whooped and piled on Alice in a group hug. Sounds like it worked out in the end then, Arjun remarked over the racket, having ducks and toilet paper and shoes on camera. Alice extracted herself from the pile to smile back. Yeah, I guess it's what happens off camera that's most important, after all.
Oh, stunning.
It's a lovely dramatic way to this. Hello.
That was very good. I was saying to Mum that it was giving me just like painful flashbacks of trying to do film projects. so many
I thought that might.
memories of very rushed film things.
Okay, so first of all, we get some requests for our October story. And then the other thing that I wanted to have a quick chat about today is the 4th year of Storytime book and some possible titles for that, because I need to come up with that and start illustrating the stuff for that 4th collection. But first, let's have a think of what we want in October. Has anyone got any requests already?
I'll do one on behalf of Lloyd. Bicycle mishaps.
Oh dear, all right.
How about uploading photos after you've already come back home?
Yeah.
And then people being like, oh, yeah, and then people being like, oh, you're still in the UK, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
I got one, Sarah.
Yeah.
Searching for whales and never finding them because they're always asleep.
Too small.
You still haven't seen any whales.
Oh
Really?
yeah, they just like floating logs.
Oh,
They didn't do any performances.
did they
or-
just sort of sit there, did they?
Yeah, they were pretty boring, really. We saw the best whales on Facebook.
Well, actually, that'd be fun to add in your story. So, you know, what do you do to entertain unusual animals? Like,
Oh,
You know,
right.
it-
Like, what's the
that's-
equivalent for the links or whatever?
yeah, you know, like, sorry,
I
Claire.
saw an amazing video today, and it had this gymnastics person at an aquarium, and they were turning cartwheels, and the dolphins started turning cartwheels in the tank to copy them. Yeah, and then they were going together at the same time, and it was
I've
amazing.
seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. What about off-script animals then? You know, animals doing things that they don't normally do. I remember seeing like a baby manta ray that just liked squirting, and it would sort of like create this giant jet stream and just fire at people in the aquarium, and it would swim like up and down. And might
That's
fit
so
with
good.
You know, pretending to do things, or the dolphin spinning around or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Here's one that's a little bit unrelated. What about door-to-door salespeople?
Okay.
And this-
Favorite.
Worst.
How-
Which is probably not a thing anymore, but that might be why it could be fun.
We've had one. Someone came and tried to convince us
Oh,
to change electricity company,
oh wow. Okay.
always.
as you always
Wow.
want to.
The most notorious door-to-door salesmen were in two categories. The first category was before the internet. So they went into houses and convinced parents that they had to have this entire set of encyclopedias, which cost an arm and a leg, to educate their
Yeah.
children.
Oh,
That's
The
second
classic
group.
one.
Yeah, the second one, most notorious, life insurance. And
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
they would come in and convince you you're going to die tomorrow.
yeah.
So you better take a policy out now.
Related to what Barry said, what about dated information?
Dated
So,
information. Oh,
For
yeah.
example, this set of encyclopedias that Barry's got from his childhood is pretty funny to read now.
Yeah. I remember looking stuff up in those when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Go and look things up in the encyclopedias. Were they sold to your parents by a door-to-door salesman, Dad?
Yes, they were.
So it's exactly that kind of thing.
They were titled the Book of Knowledge. And there are 15 volumes with an additional volume, which is the index.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got them. We've got them. They're
You've got
here. Yeah, there they are.
Hey, what?
There they are.
Sure.
Yeah.
They're worth a lot of money
I've
now.
heard of like book places refusing to
No, I
take them
don't
off
think
the
so.
shelves as well. You
Yeah.
can't get you
Can't get
can't
rid of
donate.
them. You can't give
Yeah.
them to a charity shop or something.
No.
Yeah,
They're
they
like,
sometimes
no,
have
no.
Yeah, because
signs
everyone's got
no
them and
more.
they're all outdated now. So
Hmm.
Margaret can tell you what to do with books you don't want anymore. You fold them incredibly beautifully, origami like, and make Christmas
Yeah, you
trees.
make gorgeous Christmas
Yeah.
trees. Hmm.
Yeah.
That might be the fate of those encyclopedias.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mind you, last time we had the subject of when something that you think is really old and needs to go, and it turns out to have become a valuable antique. I think that might be something where that situation may occur in the future.
Happen.
Mm.
Yeah.
Related to the door-to-door salesperson, what about also having something like, it could be a phone call or it could be a door-to-door salesperson where they've picked you and you're the worst possible person you could pick? Like, I've had people that I've already got your product, did it last week, or that's actually my line of work, and stuff like that, where it's just kind of like wrong person, wrong market.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to suggest, it kind of relates to the book thing, that one of the things about my dad was that he had this collection of books that was disparate, like there would be How to Dig a Well, Lenin's Communist Manifesto, dictionaries of everything, and so all that stuff. So related to that, but also when people have things or interests that just completely shatter your image of who that person is. I don't know if you relate
Like
that.
something you just totally wouldn't think they'd be into. Yeah.
Yeah, and that could relate to somebody coming to your door and stuff too. Yeah, so yeah, when people have interests or stuff that you just really don't expect.
Yeah.
I have the cat now.
And that reminds me of a thing I noticed the other day. You're watching something and there was a cat. Barry calls it making your bed, that the cat is making its bed. My mum and dad used to call it marking time.
What do you call
Somebody
it?
else calls it kneading
dough. Yeah.
kneading dough or kneading.
No, yeah, I call
All
it
those-
making biscuits.
Making
Yes.
biscuits.
Biscuits.
Making
Okay.
biscuits. Mm.
Yeah, you know, those kind of expressions that I'm pretty sure if you look that up in a dictionary, you know, I mean, how do you look those things up in a dictionary? You know, what do you call it when a cat does?
Yeah.
You know,
What about things that are tricky to Google? Because if you don't get the term right, you know you're going to get something you really don't want to look up, or you're just going to miss
yeah,
the-
that can be dangerous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes with Storytime research, I have to be quite careful how I
Yes.
word the search. And you know, we had the one where it was like the really unusual junk food or strangely sort of named products. And I found those things called swallow balls. So then
Oh,
I
yeah.
what they actually were. I didn't actually find out. You know. But you can imagine that search was a bit.
Ways of dispelling the unwanted door-to-door salesman
door-to-door
slash
person, some
religious person.
description, yeah.
That could come into the story as well.
How do you,
I
yeah.
also once chased them off inadvertently. So I was living in Peterborough and it was an ungodly hot day. And I'd let my lawn go to an extent that was like pretty bad. And it was kikuyu, and kikuyu is a great little spreader. So it would like be, you know, it sends out these runners and it was spreading across the driveway. And I didn't have like an edger or anything like that. So I was kneeling down and I had this little tomahawk and I was like chopping the edges of the kikuyu. And I was getting mighty cross because it was really hot and I'm thinking I should have done this, you know, in the cool of the morning, and damn, and you know, and I'm having a little bit of a cuff to myself, and I turn around and these two black suited figures with their briefcases are disappearing down the driveway. They obviously thought better of.
So the other thing I wanted to sort of quickly have a chat about was what I could maybe call this fourth collection of Storytime stories. Oh, what I think is kind of an overarching theme of a lot of them is the idea of kind of near enough is good enough, but sort of in the nicest possible way. So sometimes things only need to be enough. So I'm trying to come up with a tea-related title that kind of encapsulates that idea.
Something occurred to me.
What about shooting for good enough?
Shooting for good enough.
Shooting for good enough. Yeah.
Brewing for good enough.
Sarah, what was the, you know, like Alice Richt or whatever? You didn't have that. That's right. So I was thinking tea o'clock and es right. You know, tea o'clock, you know how they say 4 o'clock and all's well.
Oh, right.
That used to be a thing in like plague-ridden places, you know, 4 o'clock and all's well or whatever. The calling, they toll the bell and then they make that announcement, 4 o'clock and all's well, 2 o'clock and all's well. I was thinking tea o'clock and what is it?
That's right.
That's right.
They're also proposed as long as there's tea, which I quite like because it's just like, you know, oh well, whatever the situation, it'll be fine. So, you know, as long as
That's nice. I like that.
Don't panic, it's tea time.
don't panic, it's tea time. Yeah.
If in doubt, apply tea.
The other thing is, you know, what will this book look like? You know, what sort of image goes with that idea? Or, you know, it's enough kind of thing.
That
If you go with as long as there's tea, you could have some kind of disaster image.
Like, so
Yeah.
everything
with a pot or a tea or something somewhere.
everything's like flying and going to chaos, and then in the middle, there's someone just
I'm imagining
Yeah.
you've got a window, and outside of the window, it's like there's lightning and a fire and everything else, and it's just a cup of tea sitting in front of the window. So like inside the house.
That's quite nice as well. Yeah.
You could have moving boxes, and all you can find is tea. You know, being surrounded by boxes, but you've got tea. You know,
You've got tea. You can't find anything else, but you do have tea. Yeah.
Hey, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Pulling everything down in a cupboard, or maybe like the dog's ruining everything, falls down out of a cupboard. Maybe there's bits of the different places in there, and then there's just tea.
Oh, yeah, that's a good way, because usually I try to have somewhere.
You could have phrases coming down. I don't know.
Yeah, lots of stuff sort of in the cupboard, and it's falling down in chaos would be quite good.
So the dog has pulled everything down from the shelves, and then it's sitting in front of the shelves looking really proud, holding the tea packet of tea in its mouth, being like, look, I found for you.
That's the thing that matters. I found the tea.
I got the tea. I saved the tea.
That's a good start. So if anyone has any other thoughts about the title of that book, or like things you'd like to see in the images that go with particular stories, or thank you for watching. I need to check the date for October, actually. And I also need to mention that it will be affected by daylight savings. On the 2nd of October, there's an art exhibition happening, which I encourage you to come see. It is also the daylight saving change day for you in Adelaide. So your exhibition will be at 7:30 your time instead of 6:30, while it is still 10 a.m. for me. The week after, we have our story time for October, and that will still be the same as that previous week. It's going to be 7:30 in Adelaide when it's 10 a.m. here. Cool.
See you, everybody. See you.
You've got your fairy light. Very spacey.
All the things.
Artist is leaving.
Thanks very much for a really funny story. Right.